We have already seen how all the content that is going to be displayed on a web page should be within the body element. Let's add a timeline to the History of Cardiff page. We'll start with a heading in a H2 element and a paragraph to explain what the timeline is. We'll structure the timeline using an unordered list. Each list item will be a date and an event on the timeline. In fact, we'll use two lists, one to describe the events during the Roman era, and one that explains the events in Cardiff's history when the Vikings settled. Let's take a look at our page now. One way to organize content in a page is to use the div element. Div divides content into different sections that can be styled and positioned using CSS. We'll explore this later in the course, but for now we'll divide the page into an introduction section and a timeline section. So our div begins with an opening tag, and we have assigned the class attribute with the value introduction to this tag. This applies the CSS style introduction to this area of text. The closing div ends that section. Let's add the timeline div. And remember to add the closing tag at the end. Let's preview our page. We can see that the timeline style has been applied to the second part of the page and that the content is aligned in the center, unlike the introduction section, which is still left aligned. The translate attribute can be added to a tag to tell a web service such as Google Translate, not to translate the content in that element. For example, the Google translation of our page into French looks like this. But if we add the translate equals no attribute to this bullet point for 44 AD, this line will not be translated. Certain symbols might be interpreted by the browser as being part of the HTML code. For example, if we wanted to enclose these events in angle brackets, the browser would interpret them as tags and not display them. Character entities can be used to display these symbols. The entity for the left angle bracket, or the less than symbol, is ampersand LT semicolon. And we'll use the entity for the greater than symbol, the other side. And they will now be displayed properly on the page. There are several other HTML entities that you should be aware of. Carry on with the lesson to find out more.